Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to go through the sculpting process of making this Tasmanian tiger. So for what I am sculpting with, I'm using Monsterclay. It is a medium hardness Monsterclay. And I've just heated it up in the microwave for 2 minutes. Just be careful when you're handling the melted Monsterclay to just be wary that it can be very hot, especially the liquid parts. So just be careful when you're handling the Monsterclay. So I started off sculpting a head first off, and I thought it started looking like a dragon, so I put it aside and then started a new one. So I'm starting off with just a mound of Monsterclay. It's quite soft, as you can see, so like I said, be very careful when you're handling the Monsterclay. And I just work it into a rough shape of what I'm sculpting. You can use a tin foil core if you're doing something a bit bigger. And I might also just say that Monsterclay is a wax-based clay, so it doesn't go hard. And it's mainly used for sculpting and then moulding it and casting it in resin. But if you want something more permanent, I'd recommend using a polymer clay. I tend to use Sculpey a lot, but you can also find Fimo as a polymer clay as well. You can also use air dry clay if that's something that you prefer to use as well. Air dry clay is probably, you can get light ones and you can get heavy ones, but yeah, just test out what you like doing to begin with. Alright, so I'm just roughly adding a jawline to this Tasmanian tiger, and a little bit of a different process I use this time. I usually do a little bit more work on the top of the head before I add the jawline, or the jaw, but this time I added the jawline anyway. So moving on to the nose, I just add a small little ball that roughly looks like the shape of the nose, and then I start adding the little lip bits under the nose, and just smoothing it over and making sure it is symmetrical and roughly looks in the right place. We can refine it once we have the basic shape down. I just like to add little bits and pieces really roughly and then refine it later on. And then using nostrils, I use a little ball tool, making nostrils I should say. I use a little ball tool. You can get it in a pack from Sculpey, and a little pin kind of tool, and I got that in a pack of pottery accessories or tools. And then just building up the eye socket around where I want to add the eyes. So for this one, I'm adding some glass eyes for this, and then that way I'll be able to cast glass eyes in the resin casting. If you want to know how I cast glass eyes, I have a tutorial in my shop at creaturesofnat.com, and if you want to know a basic mold making and a basic resin casting tutorials, they are also in my shop, and they're digital downloads, so you can get them straight away. There's no need to go outside. So before I add the eyes in, I just want to make sure that I have the basic shape a bit more bulked out and ready to go. Just carving out some of the eye socket as well, so I can fit the eye in properly, and just creating that little details around the eye socket, and making sure everything is symmetrical and that the eyes are going to sit in the right place. I'd recommend moving your head around in different positions, taking a photo or anything like that to get a good understanding to see if everything's symmetrical. So I'm just using some glass cabochons as a placeholder for the eyes, so I can add the glass eyes in when I'm casting. And just making sure that, again, it is symmetrical. I put a little bit of melted Monsterclay behind this eyeball because it was sticking in a little bit too much, and I wanted it to stick out a little further to match the other eye. So just sticking it in there with my little needle tool. Then we can start adding the details around the eyes, like the eyelids. So I usually do this by rolling a little worm out. I like to do this method, but you don't have to. You can just get a piece of clay and put it in there. but I like to use the worm method, and I just slowly carefully just sculpt around the eyeball. The good thing about using glass eyes is you can be a little bit more rough, and you won't have a chance of carving out the eyeball if you've used a clay one. But you can use anything else like beads and stuff like that as well if you don't have these cabochons. And then just like I said, building up around the eyeballs using the worms and making sure everything is symmetrical again. Same deal with the top of the eyelid. Use a bigger piece of clay this time, a bigger worm I should say this time, and then just sort of feed it into the corner of the eyeball and make a different position. I did want to make a video on different expressions of eyes. I do want to do that, I just got to get around to doing it. I have been a little bit distracted lately, but I do want to get around to doing it because there's a whole lot of different expressions you can achieve using by the way you position your clay around the eyes. So you can make it look sad, happy, angry. There's a whole range of different things that you can achieve. So I do want to do a video on that. It is coming. So once those little worms are added, I can just start refining a little bit better the eyelids, and then I can build up the brow bones behind the eyelids as well using some extra clay. I again just do a really rough shape and then sort of smooth it out once it's on top of the head. I like to use soft clay for this reason because I can easily manipulate it around, whereas hard clay is a little bit more difficult to move around. So that's my personal preference, is using soft clay. That's why I like using Sculpey Original over Super Sculpey or Sculpey Firm, just because of the ability to move things around. And it's also really great for people that have weaker hands as well, or have arthritis or something in their hands. So you don't need to work the clay as much as harder clays. So I'm now going to start working on the ears. So this is my first little go at the ears. I decided it was a little bit too big for the head, and it sort of did not look like it made it not look like a Tasmanian tiger. So after a little bit of maneuvering around to see if it'll work, I decided to just take that off and halve the ball that I have put aside for the other ear, and that turned out it was the perfect amount of clay to use for the ears. So basically for the ears, what I did is, it's still quite a soft piece of clay, and I just used my thumb to give it a rough shape and my other fingers to manipulate the clay over that little mound, and it gives it a nice little ear shape. And then what you can do is just add it onto the head, and because it's still quite soft, you can pull it around to see which sort of shape you like and get it into the right position. Same deal with the other ear. I like to sort of not quite finish the other ear until they're both on there, so they can both be what do you call it? Symmetrical. And you can also achieve a lot of different expressions using ears as well. Animal ears are quite expressive, so maybe I can do a video on that as well, with some expressions on ears and stuff. So that's an idea for 2 videos, and maybe I can do that in this week or next week, because I have a bit of time on my hands now. And then once I'm happy with the ear shape, I can just start refining all of the other little bits and pieces, like the muscles, the facial muscles, and all the little crevices and stuff. And I use a number of tools, using a little rake tool that has a little loop on it. You can make these really easily. I do want to do a video on making them as well. Just haven't got around to doing it. But yeah, so the rest of the video is going to be refining the sculpture, and I will do another video about sculpting the feet, so I thought that would be an own separate video because this one's already getting a bit long. So that will be the next coming video, is sculpting some feet, and they're kind of a little bit universal because they're all very, very similar to wolf feet or fox feet, so that you'll be able to universally use them for some of your other dolls. But anyway, I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me. If you want to support me, you can find the Patreon link down below. I have a whole heap of stuff up there, and exclusive content and videos, tutorials, printables, and discount codes. So check it out and see what you like doing. I think it's really important to help support artists at the moment, so consider supporting their Patreon or buying things in their shops. It's not just me, it's all artists as well. But I hope everyone is safe and staying away from people. It's important to do that at this time. But anyway, yeah, you can check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Nat as well, and my shop at creaturesofnat.com. Yes, so head over there, and thank you for watching. Bye.